Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the hot comics from February 3rd, 2023, and I'm recording this on August 3rd, 2023. I had to think about that for a second. As always, I give you those dates so that you know when this information is actually relevant, because the market is always moving and changing, as you can see by the price changes that we get just from 6 months ago. As always, also, we're looking back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Tom Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. Those are the two lists I used for doing this. They each put out lists every week of books that are trending in the market, that are hot, that people are chasing, whether they be new books or because of option news or Disney or Marvel announcements or whatever. Those are the two lists I use. And then we come back 6 months later to see which books have performed well in the market, which books were worth chasing in that moment, and which ones you should have just been patient on. If you've been following this, you know, generally it's be patient, but it's nice to talk through what were the factors that affected each of the books and why were they hot, what's going on since, and so we understand really in the moment what decisions we should probably make. So with that, we only have 14 books this week, and that's really because this was the week that the James Gunn announcements came out about the DC stuff, so there were a ton of books that were on both lists. 6 books. This is probably the fewest books we've talked about, with 6 crossover books. 14 total is the fewest we've talked about in a long time on one of these lookbacks. But let's dig in and see what we can learn. First up, we have a book that was our only cover of the week, and this was Action Comics 1051. This Warren Lau store variant that you're seeing here of Power Girl. There was a trade dress, there was a Virgin variant that was zoomed out, as well as a foil variant that's also more zoomed out of Power Girl, but all in this pose. They were hitting the market. I forget which store now that they actually were from, but they were super popular. The trade dress was going for $100 on the secondary market. The Virgin was going for $125. The foil was going for $150 to $175. So these books were going crazy in the market. Now, actually, you know, you could probably argue, I end up calling these traps. You could argue they're almost dumpster fires. I mean, raws are 40 to 50, 60 to 80, 150 to 120, 9.8, 70 to 90, 80 to 200, 150 to 200. So these books are definitely down. They've definitely fallen back. I think Trav actually is, as I look through these, is probably the right call here. Still a gorgeous cover, but yeah, not sustaining those initial prices. Okay, with that, the rest of the CBSI books, and then we're going to talk about all the CBSI books and the crossover books, and then the 4 Tom at the end. All the rest of the CBSI books were DC News books. First up of the DC books is Weird War Tales, number 93, the first appearance of the Creature Commandos. This book was going for $100 plus back then, 9.8 going for $1,100 based on the announcement that we were going to get an animated series with these characters, followed up eventually by live action, or that they were supposed to appear also in live action eventually. Back then, so yeah, 100 plus, 1,100 back then. Now raw copies are still running at 25 to 175, so all over that range. So we're going to call it a steady, and I'll be back, because the vast majority of sales are in that range, although there are probably more under 100 than over. But 9.8's actually turned into a bit of a trap. $660 for a 9.8 of that particular book. So it has definitely fallen back. Next, we have Creature Commandos number 1, their first solo title. Same reasons for being hot. Back then, raw copies of this book were going for $20. Now it's a $10 to $20 book. So just an I'll be back. You'll notice I put most of these as traps. I figured they would fall back a little more. That's been the pattern lately, particularly with Marvel's announcements. So far, we've had a little more faith. We've sustained prices a little better with these DC books, as you'll see as we go through, but it's still basically following the pattern, just not quite as big a fallback as of yet. All right, next we have Stormwatch number 4. So we were another announcement we were getting were the Authority. So a lot of Authority characters, their first appearance was also hitting this list. So Stormwatch number 4, the first appearance of Apollo and Midnighter, caused this book to jump all the way up to $100. Now it's a $50 to $125 book. And again, more sales under 100 than over. 9.8, 4 to 450. So really high still, and really big value still on that 9.8 on this book. But we're going to call this a steady and I'll be back. Still around $100, but more sales underneath make it a little bit more of an I'll be back. Next, we have Stormwatch number 37. So more authority-related stuff. First appearance of Jenny Sparks and Jack Hawksmoor. I think I got those names. That's what I wrote down. Hopefully I got those names right, because I don't know anything about the authority. But anyway, back then, raw copies were going for 50 to 60. Now raw copies are going for 15 to 45. 9.8 going for 560. So this one definitely did turn into a trap. Although, again, 9.8 going for big money, but that's just one sale, so it's hard to really judge there. But these have not held as well as the other two authority characters that we just talked about. And then our final authority-related book is The Authority number 1, the first appearance of the group as a whole, The Authority. Back then, raw copies were going for 30 to 70, 9.8 going 5 to 550. Now it's a $20 to $50 book, 9.8 going for 350. So yeah, $20 to $50 book on it was a 30 to 70, 9.8 down to 350. This is I predicted trap. I ended up saying I'll be back on this one, but clearly borderline trap. I'll be back right here. Another book that's dropped. So all of these books, they haven't dropped a lot, but they've all dropped a little bit, which is not a surprise. You move away from the announcement. We're still supposedly getting all this stuff. We're still progressing. I think we're actually supposed to get the animated series sooner rather than later. I apologize for all the dings. Somewhat, as soon as I started recording, someone decided they wanted to start texting me. I don't know who it is, but yeah, apologize for that. Next, we have Legends number 1, the first appearance of Amanda Waller. Back then, this was a $10 to $15 book, 9.8 going for 175 plus. This is a book that's been on and off the list numerous times. Every time she's going to be a part of a project, people chase this book, and every time, as soon as that project either goes away or people stop talking about it, it goes right back to what this book has always been, which is a $1 to $10 book and a 9.8 under 100. And that's where we're back to. This is back to a dumpster fire. And this is just, they will not stop texting at all. So anyway, so yeah, this is just the pattern with this book. I'm gonna put this maybe further away so maybe you guys can't hear it, or turn the volume down, because I think my family is in the middle of texting back and forth about something. So all right, next we have Booster Gold number 1, the first appearance of Booster Gold and Skeets. I don't think we actually got an announcement here, but just people were like, James Gunn is going to use Booster Gold. I think it's really what was going on here. And this is another book that's been on the list numerous times over the years, as people have tried to make this happen, and it's never really happened. Back then, it was an $85 book raw on average, 9.8 going for 7. Now it's a $30 to $60 book again raw, 9.8, 3 to 500. So it is back to being a trap, and this has been the pattern with Booster Gold. Much like that Legends book, people try to make it something, it jumps up, and then it goes right back to what it's always been. All right, next we have Batman number 655, the first appearance or first cameo appearance of Damian Wayne, depending on how you want to classify a cameo versus a full appearance. Anyway, raw copies back then were 40 to 60, 9.8, 400 plus, with the announcement that we were going to get a Batman movie with Damian, that's Robin, which we still haven't gotten a good Batman movie with Dick Grayson as a Robin, but okay. So we're going to Damian. Now it's a $40 to $60 book. So right there, same range on the raw copy. So I called it steady and I'll be back, because those are the vast majority of the sales. But 9.8 is a trap. It's back down to a $200 book, $175, $225, which is where this book is set pretty much. It's right back down there. Raw value, so really those jumps in the 9.8s we got did not hold, but the raw side is still holding pretty steady. And then our last CBSI book, and another, like the last 5 books on this list were all crossover books, plus one of the Creature Commandos. This is another crossover book between the two lists. This is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. And basically we knew we were getting a Supergirl project and a movie, and the rumor was that this is the storyline that was going to inspire that, so that caused us to hit the list. $30 to $40, 9.8 going for 200. Now it's a $10 to $25 book, 9.8, 1 to 125. So this one definitely turned into a trap. These story arc stuff never hold up well, even if they are going to be in the movie or in this, going to be part of the plot. A, they usually still only barely resemble what happens in the comics most of the time. And B, even if they resemble it a lot, it just doesn't seem to hold value once the show is come and gone, or in this case, while we're waiting for it, and we may be waiting a long time because we're still in the midst of a strike and everything else. All right, last 4 books were the Tom books that were different, and 2 of those were DC News, so we'll stay on the DC News side, and then we had 1 option otherwise and 1 Marvel book we'll get into. So first up, we have Swamp Thing #1, the first Swamp Thing solo title, and this again we're supposed to get the Swamp Thing project at some point during this. 150 to 300 for raw copies. 8.5 is going for 4 to 450. Now it's 1 to 300 for raw copies. 8.5, 3 to 350. So down a little bit. I'll be back on the 8.5 side. Pretty steady on the raw side, but we put this as a down. I'll be back. You could argue for consistency, I probably should sit steady, but it's hard to judge some of these. You get one, the slabs are all kind of backing up a little bit. The raws are pretty steady. In this case, most of the books are slabs, although not 8.5s, but just in general, I looked at the other slabs and it looked like it was following that same pattern. I will tell you, this is another one where I looked up the values, the 150 to 300, because Tom put the average as 350 on sales, which, that didn't support at the time. Next, we have Batman 656. So we're back on the Damian Wayne books, and this is his first full appearance or second appearance, again, depending on your definition. Back then, 50 to 80, 9.8, 275 to 400. Now it's a $30 to $50 book, 9.8, 150 to 200. So this one's turned into a trap. This one's backed up more than the first cameo or first appearance, which is really the book most people go after, which is 655. This one's definitely backed up more, but we're supposedly still going to get this story at some point. I look forward to it. I just wish we could get a really good. I know we got the Titan show, but I would love to get a movie, Nightwing, Dick Grayson. That's just me. So anyway, next we get Tomb Raider Witchblade #1, first appearance of Lara Croft in comics, on the news that Amazon was working on a Tomb Raider series. The last movie didn't do great. Well, none of the movies I think really have done great, but the last one didn't do a whole lot. It's a character I've always enjoyed, but yeah, so she was on the, always enjoyed the games. Back then, raw copies were going for 20 to 40, 9.8 going for 300. Now it's a $10 to $35 book, 9.8, 280 to 350. So this one's been pretty steady on the 9.8 side, but down, and then I'll be back on the raw side. So that's what we went with, the raw side here. So yeah, the opposite of the book we just talked about, or the book we talked about 2 books ago. But yeah, definitely down a little bit. Definitely an I'll be back. You could do a little better, but cool book that I actually, I don't know if you guys can see it. Probably not. It's behind my chair, but I didn't even know for a long time I had that book and didn't even know it was their first appearance. So there you go. Next, our last book is a Marvel-related book. And I didn't write down what the rumor was, but I guess I think there were some Franklin Richards rumors that he might be a part of any movie or anything they were doing. This is Fantastic Four Annual #6. First appearance of Franklin Richards, first appearance of Annihilus. I don't think this was Annihilus rumors. Honestly, I didn't write down exactly what the rumor was about back then. Raw copies 100 to 350 back then, 7.0, 375 to 500. Now it's 50 to 150 on the raw copies, but there wasn't recent sales, but there wasn't really a higher grade one that was sold. So my guess is it would have been a little higher had we gotten one of those 7.0s, 3 to 400, still down a little bit. So we'll call this one a down, and I'll be back. Didn't back up a whole lot, but did back up just a little bit. So that's this week's list. We only had 14 books, so you guys, hopefully, I don't know how fast I talked this week, but it should have been a pretty short video for you. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me, and we will catch you next time.